This is Jimmy Hammer, born 10/15/21, World War II Tank Battalion. Guitarist, has a 1969 green Buick, and we're going to interview him on what his experiences were in World War II. Jimmy Howard Hammer.
Thank you.
The date today is November 29th, 2014. We're very fortunate here to have Mr. and Mrs. Jimmy Hammer, Ann Hammer and Jimmy Hammer, and we're going to interview Jimmy Hammer today. Both of them are up here in the picture, and Ann's here with us, and this is a recent photo of both of them. They met at Deaconess Hospital 33 years ago, been married 33 years ago. Both of them worked at our Deaconess Hospital in Evansville, Indiana. We are in Evansville, Indiana right now. Jimmy's born 1921, so he's going on 93 years of age. Jimmy, tell us where you were born and what you did before you went to World War II, and where you went to grade school, and what you did as a job before you went to World War II.
Well, I was born in Cleveton, Kentucky, right out from Central City. I was born in 1921, and my dad took me in the coal mines when I was 15, and I loaded a man's term when I was 15 years old. Then I worked in there 6 years. Then I left the coal mine and went in the Army.
What was your job in the coal mine?
I loaded coal by hand with shovel.
How deep were you?
About 125 feet deep and 3 miles back.
And was it very dangerous down there? Were there any accidents in the coal mine? And what city was the coal mine in?
What city? It was out from Central City.
And
4 miles out from Central City.
Were there any injuries in that coal mine or any accidents?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Bad coal mine. Rotten. Top was rotten. A lot of accidents.
You learned a lot during those 6 years. Can you tell us about what you learned working in a coal mine for 6 years?
Well, I learned to be tough.
I'll bet.
I went in the Army. They didn't have a thing in there that bothered me, because I was tougher than nails.
When World War II happened, December 7th, 1941, what were you doing at that time? And tell us what you thought about it when World War II occurred.
I was in the coal mine in 41.
What did you think was going to happen to the world then?
I didn't have no idea.
And then you got in World War II about a year after the bombing at Pearl Harbor. Tell me why you joined the Army and where you joined the Army, and then where'd you go to boot camp?
I didn't join the Army. They joined me. They drafted me, and I went to Fort Hood, Texas for basic training. That's where the tank battalion was at, in Fort Hood.
6 weeks of basic training?
Just about 6 weeks. Then we went on maneuvers down to Louisiana and the swamps.
And so you drove tanks, and you inducted into Camp Atterbury and at Fort Bend Harrison, or you went straight to Camp Hood?
I was separated in Fort Bend.
Uh-huh. And then down in Louisiana, do you remember what you did in those tanks and the swamps and everywhere else? What did you do there in Louisiana?
Them swamps was the worst place that you could ever get in. You couldn't sleep. Armadillos run over at night. Snakes, everything. And mosquitoes about the size of a match, I think. It was terrible.
How long were you in Louisiana?
I think 6 weeks.
But the mosquitoes, alligators, and snakes, a lot of water snakes, water moccasins, scared you down there, did it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, there's all kinds of snakes.
Where did you live, in a tent?
Yeah, in the tent.
Mm-hmm. And then what part of the tank did you work in or sit in? You were a mechanic for tanks, but you had to work inside a tank, too. Tell us what you did in the tanks in Louisiana before you went to Europe.
Did what now?
What did you do in the tanks?
Little everything.
Uh-huh.
Little everything.
Was it a Sherman tank?
No, it was a M36. Weighed 36 ton.
How big a gun was it, and how thick was the steel?
90 millimeter gun, and the steel, I don't know, it was probably 5/16 thick.
Yes.
Or maybe more.
That's a big gun, a 90 millimeter gun. That was bigger than the Sherman tank.
Oh yeah, Sherman had a 75.
Yes. Now, after you got done with your basic training down in Louisiana, tell us how you got to Europe and what you did in Europe and when you went to Europe.
Well, we went to England and stayed there about 3 months. Then we crossed the English Channel and landed in Le Havre, France. But the war was over on the coast when we landed. But we unloaded in Le Havre, France. Then we traveled through France, Belgium, and Holland, and almost crossed Germany.
Were you in Germany or in France about June of or July of 1944?
Something like that.
And did you fix the tanks? Were you a mechanic on the tanks?
Partly, yeah. I helped put tracks on them.
Those tracks are very heavy.
Oh, yeah.
How did you do that? It seemed like it'd be very difficult to put a track on a tank.
You lay the track down and run the tank up on it. And then you bring it over and fasten it.
But bringing it over and fasten it, they're still very heavy. You have to have leverage to do that with some.
Yeah.
And did you ever shoot the gun in the tank?
Oh, yeah.
The big gun or little gun?
I shot the big gun.
And that was how big was that bullet? As big as your arm?
It was about 4 inches in diameter.
How many bullets did they have in the tank?
Oh, they carried about 2 cases. I'd say 20 some odd shells.
Could you pick one shell up by yourself and load it?
Yeah.
And did you put gunpowder behind it yourself, or somebody else did that?
No, the gunpowder was in the shell.
In the shell itself. And then, did you remember shooting any Germans or shooting any buildings or anything?
Shot across the Rhine River, but you didn't know what you're hitting. We crossed the Rhine River on a pontoon boat. Pontoon boat with a 36-ton tank. And it took about 2 weeks to get the bridge built. The reason they couldn't build it, they'd get it about half done, and the Germans would come down the river and skip bomb it and tear it out. And somebody come up with the idea. They took gas balloons and 1/4-inch cable, and they went upstream and they put them balloons up with them cables, and they couldn't get down through the river for the cable, you know. And that's how they got the bridge built. And we crossed about daylight in the morning, just barely daylight.
On a pontoon bridge or on a pontoon?
Pontoon bridge.
Some of those were, some of the bridges some of the materials were used from Evansville, Indiana, to make some of those pontoon bridges. Very important to cross the...
Possible, yeah.
Did that scare you, getting across that bridge?
Oh, yeah. That tank would go this way.
That's scary because that's 72,000 pounds, 36 tons. That's a lot of weight to cross that river. Oh. Yeah. And you were inside the tank. If you'd have fallen in, you probably would have sunk and died.
Oh, you'd drown. Yeah.
Now, when you shot that bullet out of there, or trajectory, was it very loud?
Oh, yeah. That's why I can't hear. I shoot that gun with no earplugs.
And would it shake the tank or not? Would it shake the tank?
Oh, it'd bounce it back. Yeah, it'd raise it up.
And your tracks and all the, did you ever get stuck in the tank anywhere? Get stuck in mud or in any other type of
Yeah,
big
we
hill?
got hung up in the field. They took a cable and tied it to a tree and winched it up.
Uh-huh. Now, who was your general or who was your leader in the tank battalion?
Colonel Sanders,
Uh-huh. Do you know the number of your battalion or what tank?
809 TD,
8 or 9.
tank destroyer, 809.
And did you stay with the same battalion all the way through France and then Germany? Or
Yeah, same battalion.
how many different tanks were with you?
How many what?
Tanks were with your group?
There was 5 in each foreign section. I think there's 5 tanks in each section.
And each section, and then you had a lot of ground troops walking with you?
Oh yeah, infantry.
Infantry, yes.
They would take cover behind my tank. You know.
Was it hot in the tank in July and August?
Yeah, real hot.
How much gasoline did you have?
We burnt diesel fuel.
Or how much diesel did you have? About 100 gallons?
I don't know what it held, but I'd say at least 100 gallons.
Did the Germans ever attack you? Did you ever have any real close skirmishes?
Well, what they would do, they would camouflage in an edge of the woods, and they'd wait till we pulled out, then they'd fire on us, see? So the only thing you could do, retreat. You just turn that tank around and take off. But they knocked some tanks out. They get some of them.
Throw hand grenades at them or big guns at them?
Big guns. 88.
That's what everybody was scared of, the German 88, the 38 Hauser. That was as big as your cannon, wasn't it?
That was a more powerful gun than a 90.
Yeah.
It had more powder charge.
Right.
They could shoot through our tank, through the front and out the back.
Yes.
Then they got wires, and they put 6 inches of concrete on the front of the tank. German tank, but we still knock them out.
Yeah. When the war was over, did you come back on a ship, or how did you get back to the United States?
Ship.
Ship. You remember what kind of ship?
It was an American ship, but I went over on a British ship. And I got sick before I got out of the harbor.
And when you were in England, how long did you have to wait in England before you went over to Europe or over to the mainland? When you were in England waiting to go to your tank assignment, how long did you have to wait in England?
We were there about 3 months.
Did you practice a little bit?
No,
Just waited.
just waited.
Were you scared?
Oh yeah, they shoot them buzz bombs over England.
Yes.
They was shooting at Manchester, but sometime they'd fall short and hit out in the field. And we had a stove in this sure hut, and they'd shake the pipe off the stove when they bombed.
Yeah. And then when the war was over, you went back to United States. What port did you come in? Do you remember what port? Do you remember what port you came in? New York City or Virginia?
We landed in New York.
And
Then we come to Indiana.
by train?
Train.
How many in the train car? Just about 2 or 3 people
How many what?
in the train car.
Oh, more than that.
Could you stand, or could you have a chair, or you had to stand? And
No, you wasn't scared.
no, standing. Were you standing?
Stand.
Oh, stand?
Yeah.
No, we sat down.
Did you? And then you got discharged from Fort Ben Harrison in Indiana.
Fort Bend.
Yeah. Then after war was over, about 1945, you come back to the United States in 46 or 45?
46.
And you got out of the service, so you were in there.
45, I come back to the States, but I didn't get separated till 46.
Okay, I'm going to show a little bit of, right here we've got your paperwork here, if this can focus in. but it's got your name and Muhlenberg County, and this is your DD 214 form. This is what we use as a separation form, an honorable discharge, and then it's got all the accomplishment. It's got down in near Calvert City, but you were in. It's got a tank battalion. It says Ardennes and Rhineland and Central Europe is where your duty was, and your American theater. You had the American theater ribbon, and bronze star, which is a pretty big deal in World War II, and other credits here to your service. These are your original DD 214 forms, which every veteran has to have, and fingerprint on the bottom of that. Now, when you came back to the United States, did you have a hard time finding a job, and what did you do when you got back to the United States?
I started playing music.
Uh-huh. How many years have you played music, Jimmy?
How many have I played? I'd say about 74.
Did you play that guitar before you went to war?
I played before I went to Army, yeah.
Did you? How did you learn how to play? By ear, or did somebody teach you?
I just played by ear.
Uh-huh. And that's a regular
no
lead.
teacher.
That's a lead guitar.
That's
right?
a lead guitar, and that guitar retails for $4,000.
So that's a Gibson?
That's a Gibson ES335.
Uh-huh.
They retail for about $4,000.
Uh-huh. And you still play here in Evansville?
Yeah, I started playing here when I got out of the Army.
And you played ever since, so 70 years you've been playing or so.
I've been playing, I still play.
Uh-huh. That's something. And then where did you work for a living?
I done a little everything.
But deaconess for a long time?
I was a deaconess 10.5 years.
Uh-huh.
I worked for International Harvester 9 years, and I worked at a tool dye company 3 years. They all went out of business. So I went to deaconess to see what they do. And they still going.
But International Harvester, that's where our Whirlpool Corporation, it was Republic Aviation, where we made our P-47s. Then it became International Harvester from 46 or so all the way to about the mid-50s. Then it became Whirlpool, big blue building in Evansville.
That's right.
What did you make at International Harvester? What did you do there?
I was a die setter, set machines up.
Die for what kind of machines did they make there?
They made a refrigerator.
Refrigerator, yeah. Yeah, we were called a refrigerator bowl here at Wright's Bowl. We made more refrigerators than a lot of places in the United States. We had Servell that made refrigerators, International Harvester, and then Whirlpool.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to tell the next generation about World War II and what your thoughts are about war?
Well, the only thing I can tell them, if you can, go ahead and join the Army and make a career of it, but try to stay out of action. Try to stay out of action if you can.
What about war in general? I mean, you've lived through the end of World War I. You were born after World War I, but you've been through World War II and also Vietnam and then Persian Gulf War. What's your thoughts about how nice the United States and the freedom that our next generation has? Can you tell us about the freedom you cherish?
Well, I guess you got all the freedom that you expect right now, but it wasn't like that a few months ago when Iraq was going, but it's not that bad right now.
Did your mother and dad or any of your siblings, were they fearful of Germany or Japan taking over our country in World War II?
Well, yeah.
Uh-huh. But you weren't too fearful of that.
You know, my mom, I come from Germany, intentions going to the Pacific. But I told her when I left home that the war would end in the Pacific before I got to Louisville. It did. conductor come down the train, said the war just ended in Japan. So I still had to go on to Camp Bowie, Texas for a while before I come back to Camp Atterbury.
But if the bomb hadn't dropped, you might be over in Japan fighting that war.
I wouldn't doubt it.
You might not be here either.
That's where I was headed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all your time here, Jimmy, and appreciate the music. Why don't you pick that guitar up and end with a little 3-minute song there?
Well, it's kind of hard to play myself.
Well, you're pretty good at this stuff. Sit down there, or you're going to turn it on here. This is Jimmy Hammer, and one of the best musicians in Evansville, all by ear and plays at multiple places. He's going to end this with a 3-minute song here. Jimmy Hammer.
I played by ear till I found out they made picks. I ain't been playing.
Excellent. Thank you, Jimmy. This is Jimmy Hammers, probably the oldest guitar playing individual in Indiana and possibly the United States, maybe the world. He's 93, and if you listen to him, he plays it better than many other people. One of the oldest guitar players at the present time. This is 11/23/14. Jimmy Hammers. This is Jimmy Hammer. He's in a 1969 Buick Electra 225, and it's original. You look at this baby, you don't see these anymore. You got the little skirt over the tire there, and original interior. Let's look at this interior. This is Jimmy Hammer's original. Look at this Buick, green leather, 1969 Electra 225. Jimmy's pretty proud of that. Okay, thanks, Jimmy Hammer.
Yeah.
With his 1969 Electra 225. Sing it along, Jimmy.